Shohei Ohtani's $700 million deal is by far the largest in MLB, NFL, NBA, and NHL history. It's over twice as large in total value as the largest NBA deal, Jaylen Brown's 5-year supermax, that could be worth as much as $304 million. Show me the money. Front office insider Bobby Marks is back with us now. And Bobby, we are still a ways away from seeing a $700 million contract handed out in the NBA. But what's the next eye-opening deal that's going to be signed?
I think it's going to be Luka Doncic, and that's going to be 2 years from now, certainly if he earns All-NBA this upcoming season. So we're looking at the offseason of 2020, potentially $400 million for Luka. Jason Tatum this upcoming offseason, right around $340 million. But Luka is going to be the guy that we're going to circle as far as that potential, that $400 million player, potentially an average of maybe $80 million a year. That's a eye-popping number. That's more than what Otani's average is going to be here. So circle what Luka hears. But what Otani did was he got the double supermax. Yeah. He got the double, right, which is when you look at $700 million, it's basically I guess it's a 2.5 of what Jaylen Brown is going to get in his extension coming up here.
That's a really good point, Bobby. Ramona, before we compare sports, what do we have to put into context?
Well, look, what Bobby's just talking about is they used to be able to sign longer-term contracts in the NBA. It used to be 6-7 years. Kobe Bryant actually signed the last 7-year contract in 2004-05. But then they changed the rules to make a 5-year max the longest you can sign with one team. It was supposed to keep players with their current teams. It was supposed to promote players to incentivize them to re-sign. Instead, it's actually just led to more player movement.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you look at it 5 years, Otani's deal, 10 years, $700 million. That's like 5 years, $350.
That is true. That is a good point to keep in context. And the salary cap obviously puts a ceiling on how massive potential contracts can be in the NBA. But if we set reality aside for a second and say basketball was dealing with an open market, Bobby, is there any player that would garner numbers just like Shohei Ohtani did?
I'm going to look at the past and then I'm going to look at the future. Let's go back to 2010 when LeBron James was a free agent. Let's imagine there was no salary cap back then. Let's imagine there was no restriction on how many years you could sign a player. What's LeBron looking at in that offseason? He's in his peak of his career, 7 years. Is a team going to pay him $100 million there? That's the one from the past. Now looking forward to the future, let's say there was no draft and Victor Wembanyama was a free agent this offseason. Would San Antonio fork over $100 million for him? Would there be a bidding war where we're looking at $80 million for him? Those are the two players that I would have an eye on. So you look at the past with LeBron and certainly with the future with Victor here.
Well, I'm going to say Stephen Curry. I mean, he's been with the Warriors since 2009. He's the greatest athlete in Bay Area history. He's made the franchise worth billions of dollars. They couldn't afford to lose him. And you got to talk about a franchise that has money. So I could see them, if such was the case, being in such a tough mode that, well, we got to give Steph 100 to stay, like that they would fork up.
So I'm just going to follow up. I'm curious, right now, you would do that with Steph right now?
Or would you say maybe 7 years into his career or 5 years?
Well, I mean, if you're going to sign him a big money now, like, he's getting that money in the Bay. They can't afford to lose him.
Low key, you might even owe him.
Yeah, right.
Okay, well, then I even thought, LeBron, Steph, but these guys are so far into their careers. Who would you want to look at 10 years from now? I mean, Wemby's been said, so maybe Anthony Edwards. I'm seeing a natural progression of continuing to grow from making an all-star to USA basketball to, look, the Timberwolves are winning and doing well. He's got a coach, and Coach Finch believes in him. He's
number one in the West?
Absolutely, number one in the West. And, I also see somebody that's very likable, that can fill up seats. And why is he likable? Anthony Edwards has a great emotional IQ. He's, and as his maturity meets that, I think that's going to make him a great leader and a great superstar. So all of that together, I think he's got a formula for it.
So Shohei Ohtani got $700 million from the Dodgers because he is the greatest two-way player we've seen since Babe Ruth, right? He is worth all that on the field, and then off the field, he brings in so much sponsorship money, so much marketing money from overseas. And I think you have to look at that when you're saying who right now would get the most. To me, there's two players. Giannis Antetokounmpo and Joel Embiid. Can you imagine if you had a bidding war on those two guys with how marketable they are, the personalities they have? You get in baseball, it's always just New York and LA, right?
Yeah.
It's the Yankees, it's the Dodgers, it's Steve Cohen and the Mets with all his billions trying to spend his way out of it. But how much money would New York and LA throw at Giannis? How much money would New York, if there was no cap, you could give him 10 years.
Do the Lakers have that money, though?
Oh, they're the Lakers. They don't own their arena, that's right.
The Lakers have that money.
Bobby, is there anyone we've left off, though, of this list?
I would say, just talking what you were saying with Giannis and Joel Embiid there, Ramona, the concern with me, it's like going to buy a new car. I like those cars that have 0 miles when I'm going to buy it. I don't want to buy that fancy sports car that's got 20,000 miles on it already. Those two are certainly great names, but I think as far as, and Mark mentioned Steph Curry here, I want one of these young players, as Ross said, Anthony Edwards here. Not much mileage here, that up and coming where I can get the true value if I'm going to pay a player, over the next, 8 to 9 years, paying $80, $90 million here. I just don't, I'm concerned. The same with what the Dodgers are getting, now we're talking baseball with Otani. What's that contract going to look at on the back end in that 5th or 6th year here?
That is true. I do think the logic, my brain tells me that I would go with someone like Wemby, but my heart would actually say Giannis, just because you feel like he still has a lot of his career ahead of him. But
international players, throw one more in there, Shea as well.
That is true.
And don't forget, he's already got the Skims deal, so he's got,
right? He does have
and look, the right
deal.
team would position him, on top of everything he's doing in basketball, would position him as luxury, high fashion couture. He could have a Federer type vibe in the NBA. You feel me with that?
To get him a watch deal now?
That is true.
Get him a watch deal. You feel me, Mark?
I'm not mad at
And it counts. That's international.
I'm not mad at any player getting their money, okay? But I do think it has to be a transcendent player to be able to get Shohei Ohtani numbers. Bobby, thank you for breaking all those, crunching those numbers down for us. We had fun hanging with you today.
ESPN.